بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. فما بعد, my dear brothers and sisters, in our classes of Living Islam, I decided from today I will start a series on marriage. And when we finish this, inshallah, then we will do a series on raising children. I think these are two extremely important things. I can't possibly overemphasize the importance of these two topics, and I do hope you will find them to be beneficial. For those of you who may be new, we have these classes every day, Monday through Thursday. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday throughout the year except Ramadan. In Ramadan we have a daily reminder which is 7 days a week. So this is a regular feature of that we do. And the topics of course vary, different, we do series. Right now we are doing Reflect on the Quran, then we have Living Islam, which is this series that I'm doing now. Then we have Lessons from the Anbiya alayhimus salam, lives of the stories of the Prophets sallallahu alayhimus salam in the Quran, and the lessons that we learn from them. And then we have, recently we started a series on Tazkiyatul Nafs wa Tarbiyatul Akhlaq, so Tazkiyah wa Tarbiyah. And these change. Once a particular series is over, then we start something else. Alhamdulillah, we have in the last 2 years done over 450 classes. All of these are recorded and they are available for anyone who would like to listen to them, who would like to follow. So the reason I'm mentioning this to you is this is the resource that we have created and which is available to anyone, and it's all free. So please feel free to go to the link, to go to the YouTube channel, which is the same channel as you are watching this one, and then go. You can look for any of these videos on that channel. Today we begin this series on learning from on marriage. Now, as I mentioned earlier, marriage is one of the most important decisions in life. And one of the thresholds in life that we cross and we choose to cross. The amazing thing is that if there are two things in a human being's life in terms of his of what he or she does, which can be considered to be of absolutely critical importance, these two would be marriage and raising children. Because not only do they have momentary importance as in when you decide, but they have lifelong importance. As far as marriage is concerned, it's a usually a lifelong decision that's there for the rest of your life. And as far as raising children is concerned, it's even longer. The implications are even bigger, because it's a question of creating members of society who are going to be living in that society, and they are going to be doing whatever they do, good or evil, and to a great extent that depends on how they are raised. I say great extent because alhamdulillah, everything is not dependent on the parents. I mean, I have seen both. I have seen children coming from extremely horrible backgrounds, literally toxic homes, where parents have not only do they have no clue about how to raise children, but they are actually stuck in toxic habits and in a very horrible atmosphere. Yet children come out from there who are absolutely epitomes of goodness. Historically speaking, we have the case of Musa alayhi salam, who was raised in the family and in the home and in the house and palace of the Pharaoh of Egypt. I mean, the two can't be contrast. Cannot possibly be a bigger contrast than that. One is the epitome of disobedience and evil and everything that is bad, and the other one is one of the greatest prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is possible. At the same time, it is possible that parents may bring up children, they may do everything that they could possibly have done to raise good children, but later on those children fall into bad company, and usually that is what happens. They fall into bad company, and then they go astray, and they go they're very, very astray. I mean, completely. In many cases, they even leave Islam, and even if they remain Muslim, then they are engaged in all kinds of activities which have nothing to do with Islam, and which are completely anti-Islam and anti the principles of Islam. So this is possible, but then these are again exceptions. The vast majority of people, the rule is that your children will be as you raise them. So it's very important to raise them well. In any case, irrespective of how they turn out, what you are questionable on and what you are answerable for is what you did. So therefore, if parents have raised or did their best to raise their children well, then insha'Allah al-Musta'an, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what happened in any case, and therefore even if those children went astray, even if they left Islam, even if they whatever they did, as long as the parents discharged their responsibility to the best of their ability, as long as they did their best to raise good children who know about Islam, who know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who know Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who know the boundaries of our faith, who know what is right, what is wrong, who know morality, who have good manners, good akhlaq, then inshallah those parents are safe before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They will not be punished, and inshallah they will not be questioned, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what they did, and whatever the child does after the child grows up and falls into bad company and so on and so forth is the responsibility of that child, and that doesn't fall on the parents. So it is very important that these two things, marriage and raising children, are done very consciously, very thoughtfully, and with knowledge. Now, having said that, I'm sure you will agree with me that very paradoxically and very very unfortunately so, these two things which are so critically important are the two things which are almost completely free from thoughtfulness, they are free from knowledge, and they are free from any conscious effort. Both marriage and raising children seem to be almost reflex actions, right? You get married for all the wrong reasons, and then you worry and then you wonder what went wrong, and you wonder why this marriage broke down. Well, you should be wondering why it even lasted for whatever time it did last, instead of saying why did it break down, because it's something that you literally wrote the breaking down into it when you got married. We'll talk about all this in detail today and in the coming classes, but the point I'm saying is that both marriage and raising children are things which are completely taken for granted. It's almost as if it will just happen somehow. Bad news, it will not happen somehow. What will happen, child will grow. As long as it's being fed, it will grow. but it will grow like a weed grows in the garden. A toxic thing which has no beauty, which is really, if it was a weed, you would just uproot it and throw it away. Sadly, you cannot do that with a human being. So the point is that the two most critical things in our lives, we spend the least amount of thought behind it. We don't have any knowledge about it, and we don't even acquire any knowledge about it. And we somehow seem to believe that things will just be okay because that's what you wish. And of course, everybody wishes. And I'm sure nobody getting married wishes that it will break up in 6 months. They do. They do wish that it will last and be a source of goodness. But just wishing, as they say, if wishes were horses, then beggars would ride. The wishes are not horses, and wishes are not your marriages either. So it's very important for us to understand that. And that's why I want to take some time and try to emphasize the importance of a marriage. And inshallah, we'll try and see what are the ways of ensuring that you at least give it a fighting chance of being successful. Now, having said this, let me also say it very, very strongly and emphatically that a good marriage is as close as you will get to heaven on this earth, without a doubt. A good marriage is as close as you can get to Jannah in this life. A good spouse, a good wife, a good husband is literally a ni'mah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is something that we need to appreciate. It is something that we need to reinforce, and we need to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for. The opposite of this, a bad wife or a bad husband is also as close to Jahannam as you can get. It's like a curse. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect everybody from bad spouses, and give us and give you good spouses. And if you weren't given it, then let me make dua that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala change that situation and make your spouse into a good spouse. So this is the reality. This is the fact that it will either completely blight and ruin your life, or it will make your life absolutely Jannah on earth, right? It can be a living heaven or a living hell. Good news is that to a great extent, or I might even say to a complete extent, this depends on you. It depends on the choices you make. It depends on your own behavior and akhlaq, what you choose to do. It depends on what you choose to focus on. It depends on what you choose to ignore. So it's entirely in your hands. Whatever we choose to do, that is how things will turn out. And again, I keep saying this, but one must understand that any general statement like this is generally true, but there will be exceptions. So if there is an exception, there is an exception. Usually, in today's world, we are seeing this more and more, and that is mental illness. I suppose there is some level of mental instability and mental illness in many people, if not most people. But usually that is hidden because the circumstances of life are not so stressful as to bring it out. It's like, for example, if there is a weakness in your computer, for example, right? If there is a weakness in the hardware, or if there is a weakness in the OS you are running, usually it won't show up. But supposing you do some serious programming work, or you're doing some heavy work where the machine now has to work very hard, then it breaks down, and you might say, well, this looked fine, this was working absolutely fine all this while I was doing spreadsheets and word processing. But what happened now? Well, you put it through a strain where the weakness showed up. This is what happens also in a marriage, where as long as things are going fine, you don't see it, but when there is stress, you find that weakness shows up. So talking about mental illness, this is what also happens in the case of mental illness in many cases. And today, especially in the COVID world, because we are not post-COVID, we are post the introduction of COVID. In this COVID world, thanks to some of the restrictions on travel and meeting people and wearing masks and so on and so forth, we are seeing signs of mental illness that are showing up in people. One of the problems of mental illness is that mental illness almost by default is taken and seen as a stigma. It's taken and seen as something which is it is negative, but it's seen as something negative in the sense of negative character trait or something like that. So people are ashamed. I mean, for example, I would not be ashamed of saying that I have a cold, but I would be ashamed of saying that I am suffering from depression, or I am suffering from paranoia, or I am suffering from bipolar illness or something like that. But the important thing to understand is that an illness is an illness, whether it's a cold or influenza, or whether it's headache, or whether it is a mental illness. Some of the like some of the ones I described. It is an illness. It is treatable. It is something which should be accepted. Number one, it should be faced. It's not something to be ashamed of. It's not something to be hidden. You need to go, just like you would go to a doctor, you need to go to a psychiatrist and have yourself checked out, and then follow the advice that the psychiatrist gives you, so that inshallah you can be cured. And in cases where it may be a mental illness which is incurable, because there are such things, there are mental illnesses which cannot be cured, but they can be mitigated, they can be controlled, so that you can still live a perfectly good and happy life without any problems for yourself and others. But provided you follow the advice of the psychiatrist, provided you take the medication that is prescribed for you, and you do what they tell you to do. Now, therefore, as I told you, and the reason I'm mentioning mental illness also is because one of the problems, especially in our culture, in the culture of the Indian subcontinent, among the Desis, I don't know if this is true of other people also, but definitely in our culture, South Asian culture, marriage is seen and treated almost like a cure for mental illness. And I've known several cases where, especially with regard to men, this is what happens. The young man has, for example, the young man is bipolar, or he has a serious issue with depression, or he has a serious issue with controlling of anger, or things like this. And the parents say, iski shadi kara do, theek ho jata. Get him married and he will be fine. And they get him married. Now, this is a crime. Believe me, if anybody tells you that, strongly prohibit that. Tell them you should not. They should never do that. And if you know the parents of the bride, the girl who they are planning to marry this young man to, do go and inform them that this man whose proposal has come is not fit for your girl to marry. So they need to take this guy to a psychiatrist and get him treated first before he can marry. Say this is not ghiba. This is a responsibility that you have to ensure that this poor girl, her life is not converted into a living hell. I have seen not one but several cases where they did not do that, and as a result of which those poor girls, their lives were completely ruined. In some cases, those girls, they had to suffer physical abuse and so on and so forth. And the parents of these of such boys are responsible, and they are answerable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Marriage is not a cure for mental illness. So if there is an issue of mental illness, get it checked out, get it treated. As I told you, alhamdulillah, you can still get your son married, but do that after the treatment has been started and it is settled, and after your son understands that he has to take this treatment, he must stick to that. Then inshallah, he can get married, and in that case inform the girl who's going to marry him, inform her parents that this is the actual situation. Now you might say, ऐसा बोले तो कौन शादी करते नहीं करते होंगे, तुम जहन्नम को नहीं जाते. Understand that. Otherwise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will punish you. People will say, oh, if I say that, who will give their daughter in marriage? Let them not give. Let them not give. Don't put yourself into the hellfire because you violated so badly the rights of somebody. So this is an extremely important thing for us to understand and do. One of the characteristics today of the breakdown of family life, characteristic is of today of modern life, not family life. The one of the characteristics, one of the things that's so common today in our lives, it seems to be the breakdown of family life, and the foundation of that is a happy and healthy marriage. Now, of course, one of the big reasons for the breakdown of family life is also social media. There are cases where, imagine if you are going to be sitting with your face in Facebook or your face in your phone, then where is the time for your wife and where is the time for your husband, right? The whole time, as soon as your eyes open in the morning, the first thing you look at is the phone, and to see what messages are there and so on, what messages which may have come in the night. How horrible is that? If you are in this habit, please stop that immediately. Don't be such a slave to this thing. There is no earth-shaking message which may have come in the night, and if you miss it, seeing first thing as soon as you open your eyes that something is going to happen, believe me, if it was so urgent, they would have woken you up in the night to tell you whatever that was, right? So forget that. When you wake up in the morning, go wash your face, make wudu, pray 2 rakat of salah. If Allah gives you tawfiq, pray tahajjud. Otherwise, pray salatul fajr. Do your azkar, read some Quran, right? Let your eyes see the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the first thing that they see, and then go and look at your phone and see whatever messages you may have. There is no problem. The world will not come to an end, and your life will not stop. Nothing will happen. Inshallah, you will be happy, you will be healthy, and your marriage will be healthy. One of the biggest reasons for the breakdown of marriages and the breakdown of life is social media. So please stay out of it. Now, it is very important. This whole breakdown of family life has vast implications, both individually and in society, in terms of personal hardship, lack of concern for each other, and lack of responsibility, and a culture that promotes selfishness and self-satisfaction at all costs. This vicious circle propagates and promotes more destruction of marriages, and the sad story goes on and grows. One of the biggest fallacies, one of the worst things, anytime anybody says that, makes that statement, immediately challenge it. One of the worst fallacies is where people say that, as long as you are happy, that's all that matters, right? As long as you are happy, as long as that couple is happy, as long as the children are happy. This is the biggest fallacy. This is the absolute, complete and total nonsense. Your happiness is not a criterion for anything in this world, except perhaps the criterion to judge whether you are yourself, your akhirah is in great danger. Because people can be happy doing some extremely horrible things. They can be happy in the gross disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They can be happy committing shirk and kufr. They can be happy abusing others. They can be happy beating up their wives and husbands. They can be happy abusing their children. The children can be happy abusing their parents. People are very happy when they are absolutely zonked. Their minds are gone and blown on drugs. People are extremely, ask alcoholics, why do they drink? They drink to be happy. And they are very happy when they are drunk. It's only when the hangover hits them that they start feeling the pain. Being happy has nothing to do with anything. Please understand this. Being happy has nothing to do with anything, and being happy is not a goal in life. Today we have happiness ministries and this and that, and so and so is the no. What is important is, in many ways, what is important is if others are happy. With my life, it's not a matter of whether I'm happy. It's a question of, with my life, the way I am leading my life, are others happy? Now that is a much more reliable criterion to judge whether my life is going on the right track or not. Because with my life, if my neighbors are happy, if my teachers are happy, if my parents are happy, if my spouse, my wife is happy, if my children are happy, right? If the place where I'm working, if the other my co and fellow employees are happy, my employers are happy, those who work for me, if they are happy. Now, if that is the case, then you can say that Alhamdulillah, my life is probably successful, because I am living a life where anyone who has anything to do with me is happy. So it means that I must be doing something right. But if I focus it the other way around, and I say, well, as long as I am happy, it doesn't matter who else is unhappy, that is complete insanity. But unfortunately, in our upside down world, this is what we promote. So please, get out of this thing. Your personal happiness has nothing to do with anything. What is very important is if others are happy. And this applies the same thing to marriages. Ask yourself, is your spouse happy? If your spouse is happy, then your marriage is going well, inshallah. And again, remember, I'm not siding with the man or the woman. I'm talking about both the spouses. If the man is concerned about the happiness of his wife, and if the wife is concerned about the happiness of her husband, then believe me, that marriage is doing very well. And that's why when people come to me, and they come to me for marriage counseling, when they come to me, and sometimes they come to me with complaints. So I have the wife or the husband who comes to me and says, tell my husband, tell my wife, what are my rights? Right? What are my rights? Explain to my wife or husband what my rights are. So I tell them, forget rights, focus on duties, because you will be questioned about duties, not about rights. Now think about this. You might say, well, that's unfair. I say, no, it's not unfair. It's very, very fair, and that is the way to do. Because the two things. First of all, duties are in your control. My duties I can fulfill, or I can choose not to fulfill. My rights are in somebody else's control. So first of all, I can't control whether my rights will be fulfilled or not. Second thing is that if I fulfill my duties and my wife fulfills her duties, then automatically we are fulfilling each other's rights. Because what are my duties? My duties are her rights. What are her duties? Her duties are my rights. So if both of us are focusing on duties, and she says, am I fulfilling my husband's duties? Am I fulfilling my duties? Meaning, am I fulfilling my husband's rights? And if I say, am I fulfilling my duties, which means am I fulfilling my wife's rights, then both the rights of the husband and the wife will get fulfilled, and both of us will be happy. So focus on duties, not on rights, because you will be questioned about duties, not about rights. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will question you about that which He gave in your control. And what did He give in my control? My duties. So that is what I will be questioned on. So think about that. Two things we looked at. Three things. One is that a marriage, and I am also talking about raising children, although we are not going to be talking about raising children just now. We'll talk about that in our next series, which will happen after this one. But in this one, I'm mentioning that because these two obviously are linked. So the first thing is to take that decision thoughtfully, consciously, thoughtfully, and with knowledge. These are the three criteria: consciously, thoughtfully, and with knowledge. Not a random thing, right? People say, I fell in love. Don't fall. Falling is bad. Anytime you fall, you break something. You don't want to do that, right? Grow in marriage. Grow in love. Don't fall in love. Grow in love. Make sure you are in love with the right person, because you can be in love with the wrong person, and it will ruin you. It will completely and totally destroy you in this world and the next world. So therefore, don't fall in love. Grow in love. So consciously, thoughtfully, and with knowledge. You need help. You need knowledge. What does Islam teach about marriage? What are the requirements, Islamic requirements of a good marriage? What must a man or woman know before they get married? How many people are there who are listening to this, who attended any kind of class with regard to marriage before they got married? I'm sure there will be very few people, because this is not the norm. This is not the norm. This should be the norm. The moment your children are ready for marriage, the first thing you should do is to give them, to teach them what are the requirements as far as marriage is concerned. The problem is most parents don't know. So how will they teach them? Alhamdulillah, this series that I'm starting today, when this is over, you can make them sit and listen to this whole thing. However many classes this takes, right? Let them sit and watch this whole thing as a condition to getting married. And you see, if you can't do this, then you're not ready for marriage. So make sure they do that, because I'm going to try to do my best in covering all that is required for a person to know before they get married. So first thing we learned today is what is to get married consciously, thoughtfully, and with knowledge, that you need knowledge to do that. Second thing that we learned as far as marriage is concerned is that to focus on the happiness of the spouse, not focus on your own happiness. Very important to understand this. And the reason for doing that is really not a selfless reason, it's a selfish reason. Because if there are two people and they both focus on each other's happiness, then both will be happy. So focus on happiness. And in that context, what must you do? Focus on your duties, fulfill your duties, don't worry about your rights. Again, both people. The wife must focus on her duties towards her husband. The husband must focus on his duties towards the wife. The rights of each of them will automatically get fulfilled, because the duties are the rights. My duties are my wife's rights. My wife's duties are my rights. So if I focus on my duties, I will be fulfilling her rights. And if she focuses on her duties, she will be fulfilling my rights. And why must we do that? Because a marriage in Islam is a sacred contract with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the witness, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will question us about this contract. Allah will question us about the choice we made. Allah will question us about how we treated each other in that context. And therefore, it is something where we can be sure that we will be questioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Day of Judgment. So let us make sure that we are fulfilling our side of the story, so that when we are questioned, we will not be found wanting. We will be questioned about duties, not about rights. My brothers and sisters, as I said, having counseled many couples over many years, over a couple of decades, I have come to the conclusion that eventual success of a marriage literally lies in the hands and the wills of the two partners alone. Nobody else. Nobody can make or break a marriage if those two partners don't want it to happen. Nobody can do that. anytime you find that a marriage got broken, the and you find people who want to blame this one and that one about this, remember that these are all excuses. The marriage will break or not break depending on these two people. If there is a fault within them, then others can exploit that fault. So focus on yourself and say, how can we make our marriage strong? I just want to go through my list of topics for this series. There are 20 of them, or 22 actually. One is marriage, the making of it. The second one is marriage, living it. Now, in living it, what are the characteristics of a happy marriage? Is there a formula to be happy in a marriage? How do you make a marriage work? Is the idea of a soulmate just a myth? What kind of actions dictate a happy marriage? How much involvement should parents and in-laws have? And this is one of the most critical things. How much involvement should parents and in-laws have? How does one make compromises? When does one know that a marriage is not working? What are the core responsibilities of the two spouses, your duties? Whose responsibility is it to make a marriage happy? In today's times, what kind of mindset should people have when getting into a marriage? Is the 7-year itch based on statistics or research? How important are children to have a happy marriage? What can couples do to keep the spark in the marriage alive? Is fighting healthy? How important is money to keep a marriage happy? What are the worst things couples can do to a marriage? Should people resort to white lies, little lies, to keep the peace? And the last one, does it help couples when they talk about their problems? And to whom? A stranger or someone they know? So we are looking at the issue of marriage counseling. Do you need counseling? Do you need to go to counseling? And if so, should it be with somebody with a independent counselor who does not know you, or should you go to counseling with maybe one of the family elders or a friend or somebody who knows you, or knows one or knows both? What should happen? We hope, of course, that this need will never arise, but things happen. So this is in a nutshell what I've begun the class, as well as I'm giving you a little taster of the classes to come going forward. Inshallah, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to enable us to make this a means of khair and barakah. And as I told you, please listen, watch these videos, and promote them, send them to your friends and so on. Everything is completely free. I don't get any royalty from this. I'm not promoting this so that I can make some money. Absolutely nothing. There is a book of mine also called Marriage, the Making and Living of It, which is on Amazon. It has been translated also into Bangla. For those of you, my Bengali friends, who want to read it in Bangla, it's available also in Bangla. All that is on Amazon. Go there, buy it, read it. It's on Kindle and so on also. So it costs next to nothing. Hopefully your marriage is worth that expense. And listen to these videos. These are completely free. There's no cost involved. And I hope, inshallah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make these videos and make these classes a means of khair and barakah for you, and fill your marriages with blessing. And inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant that your marriages literally become a heaven on earth, Jannah in this life for you, and a means of earning the real Jannah in the Akhirah as well. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyil kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.